Welcome into Buckets, Action Network's NBA Daily Betting Podcast. We're in the workshop Thursday NBA slate. My guy, the OG squad is back. Sean Little and my man Joe Delaire. JD, what's going on?
Dude, we're having a good time. I mean, it sucks the Knicks got shafted tonight. We're not going to get into the refs though. I don't want to get fined.
Yeah, we won't. We're already moved on. As we record this Wednesday night, we're looking at the Thursday slate. You guys know the deal. JD is going to give his best bets. I'll give mine. We'll break them down and get out of here. JD, what are you looking at for the Thursday NBA slate?
So I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder +3 and a player prop from that game, Jalen Williams, the Jalen Williams, over 15.5 points.
All right. I am looking at Clippers Thunder under 232.5 -110 over at our sponsor FanDuel Sportsbook, and the Knicks first half -1.5 -105 on a back-to-back versus the Orlando Magic. All right, we got a couple plays here on this Thunder Clippers game. JD, give me whatever play you want to break down first.
Dude, I'm going to talk about the spread first. Honestly, I think that this is one of those spots where without Paul George now for this entire game, he suffered that brutal injury. I mean, it sucks. And I mean, look, they lost with him. He played the full game, or like almost the full game, right? But generally a full allotment of his minutes. And they still lost 101-100. Granted, the Clippers missed a ton of free throws, but I still felt like that spread was way out of whack at +7. We're seeing it now. Like they basically moved it 4 points because of Paul George, I think. But I think when you really look at this spot, like the Thunder have been better recently. I felt that the 7 was wrong previously. I think that this is probably accurate before the Paul George injury. And I think that this should be closer to maybe like Clippers -1. This to me is a spot where now you have a team that has to deal with an injury to one of their best players. Paul George is like roughly a +10 in terms of point differential on the season for the Clippers. And in all of the lineups where he's not on the floor, the Clippers are -6.5 in terms of their point differential. And they're struggling on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Additionally, you got to add in the fact that they don't have Norman Powell. So Norman Powell's still out. That's impacting their depth on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So you're really going to be putting a heavy burden on Kawhi Leonard here. And I think that that's a little bit too much because in 1,379 possessions without Paul George and Norman Powell, regardless of whether Kawhi is on the floor, the team is -12. So this is, to me, a very bad spot for the Clippers. I don't think they're going to have the time to adjust for their rotations and really kind of get together here. And this is a bad spot against the Thunder team who's very motivated, has been playing very well lately. And it wouldn't surprise me as they're at this point, like they're really just trying to make a playoff push. They're trying to make the play in or the playoffs just proper, not even be in the play in. So I like the Thunder here +3. And then for the prop, we're looking at Jalen Williams. He's gone, his points prop set at 15.5. He just scored 20 against the Clippers the other night, and he's gone over this in 8 of his last 10 games. I think that this is just a spot where people don't really know the Thunder. So we're getting these lines, they're kind of just getting thrown out there. And it's like, all right, like 15.5, sure, that sounds good. Like we'll see who bets on that. But like people are looking for Shea, they're looking for Giddey, a little bit for Dort. Jalen Williams has been awesome. He's really climbing that rookie of the year ladder. Granted, I don't think he's going to catch Paolo, but he's been playing very, very well of late. And over his last 10 games, he's averaging 20.4 points. So 15.5, just a little bit too low, especially against the Clippers team that lost one of their better perimeter defenders in Paul George. So I like the 15.5 for him as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting game. I'm going to stay on this game as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into my under 232.5 -110 over at FanDuel. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is a trap or what we're doing here, but this number is far too large. The last game they just played in, the number closed on the total, closed at 238. It was 101-100. That was the end of the game. They've played these guys. The Thunder have played the Clippers 3 times. They're 3-0 this year, have held them to 100 or less in 2 of the 3 games. In the third game, they only scored 114. Now, no Paul George in the mix. Obviously, we know that's one of the Clippers' go-to guys. That's the two-headed monster, one of the heads along with Kawhi Leonard. Him coming off the sheet, someone's going to have to fill those points. I don't know if they have the bodies, and that's why I'm looking at the under here. Clippers are 3-7 to the under in their last 10. 9-27 to the under at home. 9-27 to the under at home. These guys have played 3 times, and it's been low scoring in all 3, or 2 of the 3 for sure. The other, the middle game went over one, but it was 118-110. That's still under the list here of under 232.5 coming into the game Thursday. Maybe I'm being trapped here. I still think this number is a bit too heavy. I believe it closes more around 229.5, 229. I'll take under 232.5, minus 110. Clippers Thunder. Dort's going to have more possessions on Kawhi as well. They just played the other night. The familiarity factor is going to be there. And like you said, the Thunder are going to be hungry to get a W and continue to roll as they try to solidify their slot in the playoffs. The only thing I will say is in that last game that they played on Tuesday was both teams were atrocious from 3.
Bad.
Like out of control from 3, right? The Clippers from 3 were 6 of 31, and the Thunder were 10 of 37. Yeah. Now, that may be where there's some positive regression coming, and they could still push towards this number of 230. I still think 232.5 is too large of a number in this spot. It was just 238 the other night. Now Paul George is out. That mixed with just the potentially the matchup and the familiarity and what's the trends that have been going on with those guys are worth 5.5 points. I still think 232.5 is too heavy, so I'm going to go under there.
Yeah, man. I like that spot too. And like the Thunder sneaky have a top 10 defense and adjusted defensive rating. So they're going to be able to do that. And I like what you brought out about them being able to key in a little bit more on Kawhi Leonard. So that might like really slog that offense down. We might see a little bit more, they like forced ball movement from LA, which isn't necessarily their strong suit when one of the guys that's passing the basketball is going to be Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the defensive rate, the offensive rating is without Paul George is right there around 102, 102.5. And then that defensive rating still 109. So that's that's helping. But everything points to the under here. 232.5 is just too heavy for me. I'll play it and we'll see how it shakes out. My second play, Knicks first half, minus 1.5, minus 105, coming off a back-to-back, going to Orlando to take on the Magic. First things first, it's a back-to-back on the road, but very, very little travel. Going from Miami to Orlando, that should not be strenuous on the body of Julius Randle and those guys. And speaking of Julius Randle, after coming off of 57, he comes up a little short tonight in Miami. I look for him to have a big bounce-back game as well. And overall, Knicks 2-0 against those guys this year. They've covered both of those games. And we're talking about the back-to-back situation. Knicks, one of the better teams in the NBA on no rest, 6-3-2 ATS when they're on back-to-backs. Coming off of 2 straight losses, 2 tough games. Easily could have won the game versus Miami last night. I like them to come out ready to play ball. We know how Julius Randle, one of the best first quarter players in the NBA, coming off of a bad game, off of his historic game. I like just the Knicks to come out and get busy early. It's not a big travel spot. They play well on back-to-backs, and they're just an overall better team. This year they have had blocks where they get 5, 6, 7 wins in a row and then lose 4 or 5 in a row. That's how it's been going all year. This is a spot, I believe, where they'll come out ready to play. That's why I'm looking more at the first half versus the full game. Also, the Knicks' best first half cover in the NBA, 47-24-2. So they usually come out ready to go and fade late. I like the Knicks here first half -1.5.
Dude, you never have to convince me to take the Knicks. I mean, like, I think it's a good spot. And look, they've struggled a little bit against Orlando. Just I think because Orlando has that like length and that versatility, like whatever.
Sure.
But Brunson's looked like he's absolutely on one lately. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off again. And like you said, they're one of the best teams on no rest. So I think it's a good spot. They want to right this ship. They want to keep that 5 seed at least in the East.
I also think just the way that they lost that game in Miami was a couple tough breaks, couple tough calls. They easily could have got that W. And then this would be a little more of a spooky spot for me, especially to start the game. I think here, coming off of 2 straight losses, at least in the first half, Thibodeau will have these boys ready to go. I'll lay the 1.5, and hopefully they win the first half and win the game.
Yeah, dude, I love it. Let's go Knicks.
That's going to do it for us. Thursday NBA slate, in and out. There's a couple other really quick, actually, before we get out of here, we were talking about just trap spots and different types of things. Wednesday night, before we hopped on, me and Joe Delaire were talking about sometimes you don't have to get too sharp. Don't out sharp yourself. The obvious plays on the board after the game, and I know this is almost a moot point to talk about after the games are final, but it is something that we were looking at going into Wednesday. We didn't give out the plays. We were looking at like, how could we not take Philly here in this spot on a back-to-back? They're a way better team than Chicago. I don't care if it's on a duplex spot and they're in Chicago. 2.5 is probably too short of a number.
Yeah.
We stayed off of that. We didn't give it out. Then Atlanta's playing Minnesota. Total is 240.5. First opened at 240.5. It's like, man, we should probably be looking at that. That game is going to probably go over. And it's one of those spots where I bring this up to say sometimes the obvious spot is the good spot and a good play. Yeah. And put it in, be confident in your research, and don't out sharp yourself and feel like a square if you're putting in an over in Atlanta, Minnesota.
Yeah, man. I think it's just one of those things, like, you look at these spots and you just know it's like, this is a smash spot. Like, I know the way that I'm handicapping this is like, I want to be on this side. If you feel like you have an edge, you don't need to necessarily sit it out or even try to go the other way. Like, at a minimum, you should just sit it out then. But like, these were some of the spots that we were looking at yesterday that were really, really strong. And I mean, they're favorable spots. Like, these teams were better. And the total should have hit. And it's just like, like, I don't know. It just seems too easy.
Yeah, it seems too obvious. So I'm going to stay off when it's like that. Trust the research, trust the play. And that's kind of what I was talking about in that under 232.5. It's like, am I getting trapped here?
Yeah.
How does this game go over?
Yeah.
I just can't see it. So I'm going to play it and we'll see what happens. And sometimes you find yourself in a spot, especially in the NBA. It's like, hey, I think this is the right side. I like the side. I'm going to play it. If it doesn't come in, you just shrug your shoulders and go off to the next day.
Yeah.
That's going to do it. Yeah. A lot of games, a lot of ways to come back. But I don't feel as bad when it's like, I think this is a good spot. It has the supporting metrics. My gut is telling me this is the right spot. As long as it's supported by your research and you do your homework, play it, fire. It doesn't work out. We shrug our shoulders and move on to the next one. That's going to do it for the Thursday edition of Buckets. To recap, JD Joe Delaire, Oklahoma City Thunder +3, Jalen Williams over 15.5 points. Sean Little, Clippers, Thunder under 235, under 232.5, -110. Knicks first half, -1.5, -105 over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Enjoy the Thursday NBA slate. And remember, get buckets, baby. We'll see y'all next time.